If you want to survive in this world, stop trying to be liked. Start becoming irreplaceable. If Niccolò Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't post on TikTok. He wouldn't host a podcast. He wouldn't be pitching himself to brands or building a personal brand. In a world where everyone's screaming for attention, he'd make silence his weapon, because he knew what they can see. They can target. He wouldn't be a CEO. He'd be the man who chooses CEOs, not in the spotlight, but behind it, writing the script. Everyone else thinks they're improvising. You'd call it stealth. He'd call it control. Today, we're not chained by force. We're ruled by perception, by data, by dopamine, by how we're seen, and how afraid we are of being forgotten. And if you don't know how to shape that perception, you're not playing the game. You're being played by it. This is not about being evil. This is about survival. 21 psychological rules Machiavelli would live by in a world where visibility is a trap and silence is power. You can believe in justice. You can believe in truth. But the world doesn't reward truth. It rewards those who understand how truth is seen. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or quietly discarded, this video is the awakening you've been waiting for. Don't follow me because I sound interesting. Follow me because you're done being manipulated. If you're ready to see the world as it really is, start now. Say nothing. Just listen. Because in every game of power, the one who speaks less is the one you never see coming. Let them forget your name. Let them talk over you in meetings. Let them smile with that look, the one that says, he's harmless. Because that's when the door opens. When they stop watching you, you start watching them. In a world obsessed with attention, the greatest power lies in being overlooked. Machiavelli wouldn't chase recognition. He'd wear mediocrity like a cloak. He wouldn't fight for space. He'd let others take center stage just to map their habits. Let them measure you with lazy eyes. Let them laugh. Let them label you. And when they drop their guard, you strike not with rage, but with precision, like a shadow they never saw growing teeth. Ever notice how people reveal the most when they don't feel watched? Camouflage isn't weakness. It's war paint. In this game, the loudest one loses. Because power isn't loud. It listens. It collects. It waits. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The fool rushes to be respected. The wise waits to be feared. So the next time you're ignored, don't correct them. The next time they interrupt, don't explain. The next time you're underestimated, don't flinch. Smile. Let them talk. Because silence isn't surrender, it's scaffolding. And when the time comes, you won't need to raise your voice. You'll just move. And they'll wonder how the man they dismissed became the one holding all the power. Truth is raw. It cuts. It makes people flinch and think. But charm is silk-wrapped poison. It doesn't challenge you. It seduces you. Machiavelli understood most people don't want truth. They want comfort. They want to feel admired. They want to be mirrored, not confronted. So he wouldn't argue. He wouldn't correct. He'd smile. He'd tilt his head. He'd nod in just the right place. And behind that smile, he was already 3 moves ahead. Ever been warned about someone but still liked them anyway? That's charm. It creates false safety. It makes you lower your sword while the dagger's already behind your back. Machiavelli wouldn't enter a room with facts. He'd enter with presence. He wouldn't speak to be right. He'd speak to be remembered. He'd disarm you with a compliment. Echo your opinion. Then take everything when your guard fell asleep. This isn't manipulation. It's gravity. People follow what flatters them, not what improves them. Ask yourself, are they loyal to your truth, or just the version of you that made them feel important? In the modern world, integrity is a slow-burning fuse. Perception, it's a spotlight instant, intoxicating, and deadly. So stop begging to be understood. Stop proving your purity. Instead, become what they want to see, while building what they'll never suspect. Charm isn't about being liked. It's about being let in. And once you're in, you don't need to knock again. Have you ever trusted someone because they made you feel seen, only to realize they saw straight through you? Leave a mark below. This is how we train the eye behind the mask. Clarity comforts people. It tells them where they stand. And the moment they feel safe, they stop paying attention. But ambiguity makes them lean in. It makes them overthink. It turns a simple smile into a riddle. Machiavelli understood. Power doesn't come from being understood. It comes from being interpreted, from being watched, like a storm that might turn violent. Ask yourself, what do they assume about you? Because you've been too consistent. You weren't born to be defined. You were born to be decoded. To shift shapes, shift tone, shift rhythm, not randomly, but with purpose. When they know who you are, they box you, they predict you, they build defenses. But when they don't know where you stand, they freeze. And frozen minds are easy to move. Machiavelli would be warm today, then cold. Tomorrow, he'd agree with your values, then vanish the moment you needed confirmation. Not because he lacked identity, but because he refused capture. Remember this, once they can name you, they think they own you. But if they can't label you, they can't strike you. They can't even aim. Ambiguity isn't confusion. It's power. It makes people addicted to your presence. Not because they love you, but because they don't understand you. So, don't correct their assumptions. Feed them. Let the wrong version of you sit in their head, while the real you builds undetected. You don't need to answer every question. Sometimes the most powerful move is to leave the question hanging and watch who starts trembling. Visibility is the new vulnerability. Everyone wants to show the grind, to broadcast their every step, to prove they're building. But proof is exposure, and exposure invites sabotage. Machiavelli would never show his blueprint. He'd show a decoy. He wouldn't share his vision. He'd share a version of it, one designed to distract. Ask yourself, what are you revealing that they don't need to see today? They track your rhythm, your posts, your routines, your updates. And once they trace your pattern, they start plotting against it. So shift the lens. Give them just enough movement to assume progress. A launch here, a quote there, an interview that says nothing but feels like everything. Meanwhile, beneath the silence, you build the empire. Machiavelli once wrote that a prince must sometimes act against loyalty and morality if it means protecting the state. Not out of evil, but out of necessity. Translation: appear noble, move with silence, smile with softness, strike with precision. You don't have to lie. You just have to withhold. Control the frame but guard the film. Let them think you're behind. Let them sleep on your silence. And when your results arrive, they won't even know what path you took to get there. Because that's the art of asymmetry, they shadowbox ghosts. While you walk through walls, never post the real play. Never let them hear the real music. Only let them dance to echoes while you're writing the next movement in a locked room. What's one thing you wish you had never shared with the world? Post it below, or don't. Sometimes, restraint speaks louder than revelation. Perfection doesn't fascinate. It satisfies, then it fades. What truly haunts people is the contradiction, the glitch in the image. The one moment that doesn't belong, but refuses to leave their memory. Machiavelli would craft a flawless exterior. Polished, stoic, measured. He'd become everything they admire, confident, composed, unshakably calm. And then with surgical precision he'd let it slip. Just once. A flash of something darker. A cold silence in the middle of praise. A comment too sharp to be accidental. Not enough to scare them. Just enough to make them wonder. Ask yourself, have you ever shown them a crack, just to see who steps closer, because people don't chase perfection. They chase the unknown. They chase the shadow behind the light. You don't break your mask by accident. You fracture it like strategy, like thunder after silence. A reminder that there's more to you and it's not all gentle. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must appear virtuous, but be ready to act contrary to virtue." The key word, appear. So give them the version they want. The hero, the mentor, the visionary. Then let one moment of chaos bleed through. A controlled burn, a flash of fire behind the smile. Because that fracture, if timed right, doesn't weaken your mask. It immortalizes it. You become a myth, a storm that pretended to be the sky, and they'll spend years trying to figure out which part of you was real. Words are doors. And the more you leave open, the easier it is for someone to walk in and rearrange your mind. Machiavelli didn't speak to be heard. He spoke to protect, to conceal the map behind the smile. Because every sentence reveals not just thought, but fear, doubt, désir. So he mastered the art of saying, just enough is silence as protection. The first layer is survival. In a world that rewards overexposure, restraint is rebellion. When you speak less, they fill in the gaps. They project. They assume. And most of the time they're wrong. Ever told the truth? And watched it get used against you. Silence doesn't just hide the plan. It protects the core of who you are from being dissected, dismissed, or distorted. Silence as control. In the second layer, silence becomes tactical. Machiavelli would walk into negotiation, say one line and stop, while others explained, defended, chased validation. He sat still. That stillness, it created weight. It made his words heavier because there were fewer of them. The more you talk, the more they anchor to your rhythm. But when you go quiet, they drown in their own overthinking. True dominance isn't about interrupting, it's about letting them reveal more than they meant to. Silence as psychological pressure. The third layer is war. Here, silence becomes a weapon, a void they can't tolerate, a blank they desperately try to fill. They wonder, is he angry? Does he know something? Why isn't he reacting? And in that spiral, they expose everything. Machiavelli wouldn't threaten. He'd pause. He'd watch. And in that pause, his enemies would self-destruct. Silence isn't passive. It's strategic restraint. It lets the room burn itself down while you stand still. Untouched, so say less. Let the silence carry tension. Let it ask questions louder than words. Because when you stop explaining, they start guessing. And in that guessing, they give away the very leverage you were too disciplined to speak. What's one moment when silence protected you more than words ever could? Tell us below. or don't. Either way, the silence says enough. The most dangerous figure in any room isn't the one shouting across the table, it's the one smiling beside you, who never told you which side they're on. Machiavelli never picked sides. He painted himself into both. He wouldn't declare loyalty. He wouldn't threaten openly. He'd agree with your enemies and protect those he planned to remove. Why? Because clarity invites resistance. But uncertainty, that puts people to sleep. It disarms their instincts. Have you ever trusted someone simply because they never gave you a reason not to? The moment they label you, they begin preparing. But if they can't define you, they can't defend against you. So you become the anomaly, friendly, but unreadable, kind, but not soft, supportive, but not devoted. You're the calm before the collapse. Machiavelli called it being both the fox and the lion. The fox senses traps. The lion scares wolves. But the real power is moving between them so swiftly that no one's sure which one you are until it's too late. You praise your rival's strategy. You raise your glass at their victories. You celebrate their rise until they confuse your smile with submission. Then, when the timing is precise, you act. Without a warning, without a roar. Because power isn't in the kill. It's in making sure they never saw the blade. And when the dust settles, they don't even know who to blame. Because the one who whispers is never the one they suspect. Have you ever played the ally to someone who didn't know you were their test? Tell your story below. Or let it remain between you and silence. You've been ignored, dismissed, laughed at for staying quiet. They mistook your silence for weakness, your patience for passivity, your stillness for surrender. But every second you were watching, learning, recording. You let them speak. Let them explain themselves. Let them reveal their blind spots while they assumed you had none. Now, they're comfortable. They believe they know you, that you're safe, predictable, that you're not a threat. Good, because power doesn't announce itself. It waits. And when it moves, it's not a scream. It's a shift in the air. A look. A silence that says, "You won't survive the version of me you forgot to fear." Machiavelli understood this moment better than most. He knew there's a line between waiting and seizing. And once you cross it, there's no return. You are no longer observing power. You are becoming it. But not the kind they can see. Not a title. Not a crown. You're becoming the voice in their decisions. The silence in their confidence. The ghost in their strategies. This next act is not about being seen. It's about making others blind. You don't need to lead from the front. You lead from behind their assumptions. Through loyalty, through trust, through everything they hand over, because they think you're just like them. But you're not. You've outgrown the need to be understood. Now, you aim to be obeyed without command. And to do that, you'll need a new set of rules. So listen closely, because from this point forward, you're not surviving the game. You're rewriting it. The cleanest kill is the one they walk into with a smile on their face. Machiavelli never charged the gates. He sat at the dinner table. He toasted to your success. He clapped when you won. And all the while, he was erasing you from your own throne. You don't remove power by force. You remove it by comfort. Let them feel admired. Let them feel essential. Let them feel like they've already won. Because power blinds those who believe they're safe. You don't attack their position. You become part of it. You mirror their tone. You echo their confidence. You help them shine until they stop watching the shadows. And when their guard is down, you move. Not loudly, Not cruelly, just surgically. Ask yourself, have you ever applauded someone while secretly becoming everything they feared? This isn't betrayal, it's precision. Because if you strike too soon, they fight. But if you wait, they surrender before you even touch them. They call it trust. You call it timing. And when it's over, they won't even know what happened. Just that something shifted, and the room no longer answers to them. You didn't take the power, they gave it to you, because you let them feel safe. And safety is the most seductive illusion you'll ever weaponize. The deepest form of control isn't domination. It's absence. Calculated. Unexplained. Machiavelli didn't need to shout commands. He offered value so quietly, so precisely, that when he vanished, the silence screamed louder than presence ever could. You don't need to chain them. You just need to solve something no one else can. Bring peace to a storm they didn't know they were in. Speak the one sentence that breaks a thought loop they've battled for years. Offer stability in a language they thought only chaos could speak. And once they lean on you, you step back. Not in anger, not in rejection, just silence. And now, they're not thinking about what you gave. They're obsessed with what they lost. You didn't steal anything. They handed it to you because you made them feel seen. And now that gaze is gone, and they can't breathe the same. This isn't cruelty. It's leverage. Ask yourself, who's still haunted by the version of you that left before they understood your worth? Because absence isn't just memory. It becomes need. And the mind fills in every empty space with hunger, and questions, and fantasy. This is not manipulation. It's gravity. They orbit you now not because you asked, but because they can't stand still without you. True power isn't what you do. It's what happens when you stop doing it. Most people give to be liked, to be seen as generous, to hear, thank you. Machiavelli didn't care for gratitude. He didn't give to be loved. He gave to own a piece of your spine. A small favor. A well-timed solution. A moment where he made your life easier just enough to tip the balance. And then he waited. Not for praise. Not for return. He let it sit. Quiet. Heavy. Growing. Because a favor that isn't repaid becomes guilt. And guilt becomes leverage. You'll try to balance the scale. Not because he asked, but because you need to. You'll share information, make introductions, choose sides, tiny compromises that feel like loyalty, but they're not. They're interest payments on a debt you never acknowledged out loud. Ask yourself, who are you still saying yes to just because they helped you once? Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He'd never demand repayment. He'd just tilt his head, mention the past, smile at your discomfort. And suddenly, you're not just helping him. You're protecting the version of yourself that feels indebted. That's the trap. You think you're choosing, but really, you're compensating. Trying to silence the quiet weight of obligation he put on your back with a single act of generosity. This isn't manipulation. It's ownership without paperwork. Real loyalty doesn't come from kindness. It comes from complicity. From the moment they cross a line for you, Machiavelli wouldn't beg for allegiance. He'd offer a whisper, a moment, a choice. Tell me what they said. Just between us. Can I trust you with this? And just like that, you lean in. You give away something that wasn't yours. You cross a boundary quietly, voluntarily. And once you cross that line, you belong to him more than yourself, because now you're invested. Not in him, but in protecting what you did for him. You shared the secret, broke the code, betrayed someone else just a little, and you'll defend it. You'll defend him, not because you love him, but because if he goes down, so do you. Ask yourself, who are you loyal to? Because they know too much. That's the genius of it. Machiavelli wouldn't thank you. He wouldn't even mention it. He'd let the moment hang, unspoken, heavy, and you'd replay it again and again, until protecting him felt like protecting your own reflection. This isn't friendship. It's strategic intimacy. You betrayed someone else to be seen by him. And now, you can't afford to lose that bond. Because if it breaks, you're no longer a supporter. You're a traitor with no home. This is how power creates shadow kingdoms, not with armies, but with whispered sin. Some walls crumble not from the outside, but from a single crack on the inside. Machiavelli never needed to attack a group. He just needed to find the thread and tug. He wouldn't scream betrayal. He'd ask questions. Soft, subtle, surgical. Stranger didn't defend you. You really trust her with that? I heard something. Probably nothing. That's all it takes. Doubt doesn't need proof. It just needs space. And once that seed is planted, they water it with their own fear. He wouldn't accuse. He wouldn't push. He'd just whisper and vanish into the background as the group begins to splinter. Because trust isn't broken like glass. It rots slowly, silently, until everything looks fine, but nothing holds. Ever watched people collapse without anyone actually attacking them? That's the elegance of internal sabotage. No force, no blame, no fingerprints. Just a raised eyebrow at the wrong time. Just a pause where a defense should have been. Machiavelli didn't destroy alliances. He let alliances destroy themselves. And when it's over, they won't remember the whisper, only the fallout. You don't need to insult them. You don't even need to disagree. You just need to see them too clearly. Machiavelli didn't crush egos. He mirrored them. He'd observe quietly. Notice the twitch in their voice when they spoke of ambition. The flicker in their eyes when their confidence cracked. Then, at the perfect moment, he'd offer a line like this. You're bolder than most people who grew up ignored. Impressive, especially for someone who's used to being overlooked. That's a big risk. I admire how you've learned to trust yourself, finally. Not insults, not praise. Just recognition, and it lands like a fingerprint on glass. Subtle, permanent. Because when you name what they hide, they feel exposed, but also understood. And once someone believes you see their deepest flaw, without judgment, they stop resisting you. They start following. Not because you inspired them, because you recognized them. And that kind of validation is addictive. Ask yourself, who have you let close just because they said something you thought no one else could see? Machiavelli knew the truth. People don't surrender to enemies. They surrender to clarity. You don't fight them. You hold up a mirror and let the weight of reflection break their defenses. Not with force, not with persuasion, but with something far more powerful, being the only one who knows what they're running from. Has someone ever seen through you so deeply? You felt both afraid and safe. Tell it below. Or just sit with it. Some reflection don't need replies. The most feared man is not the one who strikes. It's the one who never lifts a finger but always gets what he wants. Machiavelli never dirtied his hands. He didn't need to. He understood that the power isn't in the blow, it's in the orchestration. He didn't remove threats. He created pressure. He let tension build. Let ego scolide. Let others believe that violence was their idea. Ask yourself, when was the last time you made someone move without ever telling them to? He'd whisper. Subtle. Suggestive. Never direct. Strange. How they always interrupt you. Just imagine how things would be without him. You'd be better off calling your own shots. And then, he'd walk away. He wouldn't give the order. He'd let the moment do the work. And when the knife finally fell, everyone looked at the hand that held it. No one looked at the mind that planted it. That's the beauty of unseen control. The world blames the executor, never the designer. When the dust settles, he's clean, untouched, even praised for staying calm, while others lost their heads. Machiavelli would let rivals destroy each other, while he played the reasonable one, the confidant, the advisor, the man above the chaos that he quietly authored. This is how power hides in plain sight. You don't need to light the fire. Just leave the match next to the gasoline. In every room, the one who says the least sees the most. Machiavelli didn't interrogate. He invited silence and let it do the asking. Most people fear the unknown, so they fill it with words, with confessions, with strategies they should have kept hidden. He'd say online, then nothing, no nod, no reaction, just stillness. And in that stillness, the other side would unravel, trying to fill the unbearable space with validation, explanation, overexposure. Ever sat across from someone who said so little that you ended up telling them everything? That's the weapon. The vacuum. They speak not because you forced them, but because they couldn't stand the weight of your silence. And the best part, they think it's a conversation, but it's a confession. In a noisy world, the quietest man commands the most fear, because silence forces imagination, and imagination always exaggerates. So don't react, don't correct, don't fill the gap. Just let the silence stretch until they can't breathe. But only when it matters. Predictability is comfort. And comfort is a liability. Once they know how you respond, they can script around you. They can provoke. They can trap. They can prepare. Machiavelli didn't fear being misunderstood. He weaponized it. He'd forgive a mistake one day, then go silent the next. He'd offer warmth in one meeting, then freeze the room without warning. Not randomly, strategically. The goal isn't chaos, it's hesitation, because when they can't forecast your next move, they don't move at all. They overthink. They stall. They shrink their plans to avoid awakening what they no longer understand. This is how you create psychological terrain where you're always uphill and they're always guessing. Ask yourself, who's afraid of you? Not because of what you've done, but because they don't know what you might do. Be clear in your values, but not your rhythm. Be stable in your intent, but flexible in your expression. Because fear doesn't come from power. It comes from unpredictability, from not knowing who you are today or who you'll become tomorrow. True dominance doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be felt when you're no longer there. Machiavelli didn't chase the spotlight. He became the reference point, the standard, the invisible axis others rotated around long after he walked away. Power isn't who speaks loudest in the room. It's whose silence the room still obeys. You do this by being precise, disciplined, uncompromising in your structure. You become so essential to how things function, to how people decide, to how rooms breathe that your absence causes friction. They hesitate, not because you're watching, but because they remember how you would have acted, and they fear getting it wrong. You're no longer a man. You're the voice in the back of their head. Ask yourself, who still adjusts themselves to standards you no longer enforce? That's presence. That's reach. That's legacy without announcement. You don't need to fire them. Just walk away and let their dependence implode. Let them try to replace you only to realize you were the system all along. Threats are noise, and noise invite défense. Machiavelli wouldn't say, "I'll destroy you." He'd raise an eyebrow, then say nothing. Because real fear doesn't come from what's said. It comes from what's withheld. The moment you describe your revenge, you shrink it. You make it measurable, predictable. But when you go quiet, they imagine everything. Ask yourself, who have you scared most? Simply by not reacting. You cancel a meeting. You stop replying. You exit without explanation. Suddenly, their mind becomes the battlefield. They spiral. Replay old words. Scan for meaning in your silence. Not because you did something, but because you might. This is psychological pressure without motion. A presence that multiplies when you remove it. And when people fear what they can't see, they start managing themselves. They walk on eggshells. They double-check their tone. They apologize for things you never mentioned. That's real power. Not in what you threaten, but in what they create to protect themselves from you. Let imagination do the heavy lifting. Let fear write the script. And stay silent while the scene plays out exactly as you planned. Weak men seek justice immediately. Strong men wait. Machiavelli never struck back in anger. He let the insult sit. He smiled. And while his enemies celebrated, he sharpened the silence. You don't need to respond today. You don't need to explain. You just need to endure and watch. Because timing is everything. When revenge is served cold, it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like fate. Ask yourself who thinks they got away with it. Because you never reacted, that's your advantage. Let them forget what they did. Let them feel safe. Let them build more. Stand taller. And then, when they least expect it, you move. Not with rage. With elegance. With timing so perfect, they don't even realize it's revenge until the ground beneath them disappears. You don't just destroy their moment. You haunt it. You stain it. You make their victory the very reason they collapse. And the best part, you don't have to stay to watch it. You're already gone into your next chapter. Untouched. Unapologetic. Not a man. Men can be replaced, erased, blamed, forgotten. But a system, a method, a structure, others depend on without fully understanding, that's untouchable. Machiavelli never wanted followers. He wanted frameworks. He didn't want people to like him. He wanted them to need his way of doing things. Ask yourself, if you disappeared today, would your method still move without you? That's the goal. You embed, not as a face, but as a formula. You teach. You standardize. You solve problems in a way so efficient, so irreplaceable, that even your enemies adopt your structure. And when they try to remove you, they fail. Because removing you means dismantling everything they've come to rely on. You're no longer a man. You're an ecosystem, a decision-making model, a logic gate, a ghost in the machinery. And if you've done it right, they won't even realize you're still running the show. They think they've evolved, but every move they make still echoes your strategy. The highest level of power is not being respected, not even being feared. It's becoming unspeakable. Machiavelli didn't want applause. He wanted silence when his name came up. Hesitation, shifts in posture, unspoken glances. Because true power isn't measured by mentions. It's measured by how carefully they avoid mentioning you. Ask yourself, who do people still talk about without ever saying their name? You don't trend. You haunt. You're the case study they never reference. The story told in fragments. You know who I mean. Let's not end up like him. You become a myth. A line no one crosses. A symbol of what happens when someone gets too smart, too silent, too far ahead. They'll share lessons inspired by you without admitting where they came from. Because to name you is to acknowledge your grip. That's not fame. That's consequence. You don't leave a legacy. You leave a shadow that shapes decisions long after your presence is gone. Power doesn't make noise. It doesn't ask to be seen. It doesn't beg to be respected. Real power moves in silence. It watches while others perform. It studies while others speak. It builds while others chase applause. And when it finally moves, the room shifts. But no one knows why. If you've made it this far, you already feel it. That stillness inside you isn't doubt. It's clarity. It's the end of who you were and the beginning of who you're becoming. You've spent too long explaining, too long being available, too long being liked by people who wouldn't flinch to forget you. But that version of you is dying now. And something colder, calmer, sharper is waking up. You don't need permission. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be loved. You only need to be unforgettable. Let them underestimate you. Let them talk over you. Let them sleep on your silence. Because when you move, you won't need to announce it. You'll have already won before they knew a game was being played. You're not here to impress. You're here to leave a mark so deep they whisper your name like a warning. Which rule woke something up in you? Which moment cut deeper than the rest? Share it below. Let your story finish what silence started.